very warm welcome to a new video for the 1995 Bon Jovi concert series. I recorded a video last week on a Sunday, so that's now like 8 days ago, and I had the most amazing week. I was really productive, not with creating books for my pen name, because I promised that I would be wrapping it up so that I would be more here. I have more time to be here. But instead I wrote like, I don't know, 3-4 new blog posts or something, like a lot. So I think that's also why I was so eager to come back here. I thought, okay, if I have that, I had such a productive week after I create a video, then I should be doing these weekly. So we're doing the tour 1995-1996, and it would be desirable to do this more often, like twice a week, 3 times a week, because there's just so much material. There's so much to cover in, like, the upcoming touring year 1995-1996. So yeah, let's hope that I keep it up once a week, and otherwise twice a week, maybe even, and that we can get this series, well, not on the road, we are on the road, but in a higher gear and finished at some point in 2021. Okay, so we're at Barcelona, Spain. The concert was given on June 13th and 1995, and I was like, every time I watched that video, I was like, that sounds kind of familiar. And then I was, oh, of course, my concert with Bon Jovi for the This House Is Not For Sale tour was on June 13th in 2019. So that's why the date looked vaguely familiar to me. It's like a really long concert, 2.5 hour show. There is a recording of it. I'm actually only covering the concerts where I have a recording. So a YouTube recording. So there's a YouTube recording of this. I'm sorry. And the show after this, which is Portugal, doesn't have a recording, so we'll not be doing that one. But in between those two shows, in between Portugal and Spain, they went all the way to Scotland, to Glasgow, and they did a half-hour show at a record store in the first, how do you say that? The first floor of a record store, or is it called the second floor in America? I don't know, but it's not the ground floor, it's one above that. So they did a show, and I will be covering that, so that will be the next video, will be the half-hour show in Glasgow. It's a Tower Records, so if you want to have a sneak peek, go to YouTube and search for Tower Records 1995 Bon Jovi. Okay, so really long show. Spain. Bon Jovi has been very popular in Spain. I googled for a bit to see if I could, get any proof. I have a memory of John Bon Jovi saying that, like, yeah, we're really big in Spain, you wouldn't believe it. They really are that big in Spain, you wouldn't believe it. And one of the ways you can see that, the evidence of that, is that many of the shows that are uploaded on YouTube or other fan art uploaded on YouTube will have a lot of comments in Spanish. So yeah, so, but I do have to say that I will not be able to distinguish between Spanish and Portuguese. So if there are Portuguese comments, for example, because people are from Brazil, I will not be able, I will how do you say that, I will see that as evidence, like, oh yeah, that's more evidence that they're really popular in Spain. I don't know, but they're probably really popular in Spain and in Brazil. Okay, so big show. Barcelona, Spain finally had Bon Jovi back, and they actually mentioned something about that. So if you know more about this, leave it in the comments. Like if you're a better, more thorough researcher than I am, leave it in the comments so that we can find it there. Because is it true that they had not been in Spain for a long time, or was Bon Jovi referencing to something else? So he says, literally, we've got a long night ahead of us. We've been waiting for a long time to get out here tonight. So is he referencing to something that happened on location, on site, like, I don't know, the late airplanes or whatever? But I feel that it might be the case that they have, I don't know, missed Spain for one tour, or, you know, that something happens. Like, do you know anything about it? Did you do your research? Better than me. I think everybody does their research better than me. But okay, so but I do know that they are very popular there, and something tells me that they were aware of that. That it kind of like, you know, set the tone for this concert. That they knew how much the fans in Barcelona had been looking out for this, and that they had kind of like missed out at some point, or that they kind of like, you know, get only one concert when they should have had 3, or, you know, whatever. For example, London or England always gets like heaps of concerts, like in different locations, and then 3 times in Wembley, and it's like crazy. It's England gets a lot of Bon Jovi concerts. So if you would compare it, if you would compare how many Spain gets to how many England gets, you know, it's kind of like I really felt when I was listening to this that they kind of knew that they didn't really yeah, I mean, kind of holding out on their fans over there. So the set list is, it opens with Living on a Prayer, You Give Love a Bad Name While in the Streets, which is kind of like, you know, standard at the time. Then John always addresses the audience, the crowd, and that's the quote I just gave you. Together with, so fasten your seatbelts, because for the next 2.5 hours, or until the sun comes up, we're gonna be playing for you, so get ready. And then they, you know, go into Keep the Faith, which is such a, it's almost a party song, isn't it? When it's played live, it's, yeah, really impressive. Okay, then after Keep the Faith, they have Blood on Blood, and it starts acoustic, as it always does on this tour. And that really triggered something in me that I've been kind of like carrying with me for a long time, and I'm like, okay, do I have to start a special series for this, or do I have to write about it instead of talk about it? Do I even have to address it? Well, that's kind of like gives a false sense of modesty, because I think I should be talking about it. And that's, are you ready for this? And that's John and Richie breaking up. Ooh, like John and Richie breaking up is kind of like the landmine on, you know, within Bon Jovi fandom. It's kind of like the thing that we really don't want to talk about, but we always end up talking about it. Kind of like, if you discuss Star Wars, you always end up talking about The Last Jedi. But if you discuss Bon Jovi, you always end up talking about Richie and John breaking up. So, I have a lot to say about it, a lot to share, and the reason that I am convinced that it's a good thing to do so is because I have a very loving, empathic view on what went wrong, and I'm not a person who chooses sides, because I can just I have empathy for, you know, what I see happening or what I thought I saw happening, and what I do in my life, but what I will also be doing here is create a narrative that is for all parties acceptable, and that is better than the landmine feeling that we now have every time it comes up. And the reason it was triggered with Blood on Blood is because he says in the intro, so that's in the acoustic part. So Blood on Blood is of course about friendship that never dies, and he says, I'll be there for you till kingdom come. That's the lyric. And then what usually comes afterward is blood on blood. Now he says, I'll be there for you till kingdom come, cross my heart, blood on blood. And that was like, you know, add an extra, cross my heart, to the song Blood on Blood is, you know, if you know the ending of the story, which is them breaking up, it's like, it's like another moment. So I think Blood on Blood really proves that both Richie and John value friendship very highly. And the reason they've always played that song with so much conviction and so much heart in it really is an illustration of how important friendship was to them, how important friendship was a part of their, you know, them being in the same band. And what I think happened, and that's another reason why I'm sharing this with you, because you might be able to use this information for your own life. What I think happened is, if we have two types of relationships with someone at the same time, for example, if I become lovers with someone, but we keep it up, it will either turn into a relationship where we share a life, or it will turn into a friendship where we also have sex. And then when at one point the being lovers no longer works, it is very sad if you just throw the entire relationship out, because by then you will either be living together, so you're, you know, throwing your entire marriage or you know, partnership out, or you're really good friends, and then you're, just because the lover part doesn't work anymore, you throw your friendship out. And I think that's what happened here. They had started out as being musicians in the band together, so that's kind of like a business arrangement. Then they became friends, and when in 2013 the business arrangement, as far as live concerts, because that's really where it, you know, where it broke, the business arrangement, being in a band together who played live, ended, and they, you know, they kind of lost the friendship, when in fact it were two different things. It was a very, you know, they had a very layered relationship, and their friendship had been a huge part of it. So I think what that teaches you, regardless of what, you know, they will do with the situation, it really teaches you that it pays off to curate your relationship, to see it as curate is a term which is used for, like, with museums or exhibitions and stuff. You know, they have like everything, like a lot of paintings from one different painter, and they're like, okay, we're going to curate it and make an exhibition so that we have, like, I don't know, 25 paintings that will show the audience. So curating means that instead of tossing it it out, or instead of rejecting it, or instead of burning it, you think, okay, but which parts of this are still beautiful, which parts are still healthy, or which parts together create a new story, create a collection. And I really like the idea of curating relationships, that when something happens between two people, and the more layers, the more aspects you have in your relationship or in your friendship, the bigger the chances, the higher the chances that one of those aspects will fall out at some point. So I really like the idea of curating the other parts, just being like, okay, this doesn't work. In the case of John and Richie, being live together on stage every night and to make the touring schedule of Bon Jovi, the touring schedule of Richie Sambora didn't work. But he could have stayed on as a recording artist. He could have stayed on as a singer-songwriter for the band. He could have stayed on as a special guest, just like Little Steven was a special guest. So that's, I think that's one of the things we can learn from the relationship between Richie and John. It doesn't have to end like that for your multi-layered relationships that you're ending. You can, take a look at it and say, okay, that's just one part, but what do we got? What do we still have? So this is the first time I'm like adding in, something extra in this series, like a little story that, maybe inspires you to not be so, how do you say that, determined or finite in your choices when it comes to people that you really, really love. Okay, so that was Blood on Blood. Then we go into Always. Always did have the Can't Help Falling in Love intro, so that's a song from Elvis, and it's an a cappella intro, but it was really, really short. So where in, I think it was the previous concert, it was really long, had an extra verse actually in Can't Help Falling in Love. It just, kept going on and on and on before Always came. This was really short, but it was there. And then Always, and in Always, like first of all, the crowd just sings, I don't know, like the first two verses of the song is only by the crowd. It's really, really impressive. And there's so much yelling. I'm really wondering if he went into the crowd in Always, because there's just so much, they're screaming. So something exciting definitely happened. Then I Die For You, Blaze of Glory. And then he says in Blaze of Glory, I didn't note that down, but I know it by heart, like, are there any cowboys in Spain? Or Barcelona, but I think Spain. Are there any cowboys in Spain? Okay. I Believe, Runaway, and then after Runaway we move into Dry County, and that's something special here in Spain, Barcelona, because it's for the crew, it's for the roadies, and I don't know why he did that. Maybe because it's difficult to translate political topics or something into Dry County if you're in Europe. But Dry County is a song where there have been a lot of speeches in the song, so at the beginning and in the middle, and I usually can't hear it, especially the ones in the middle. I can't hear it, and so I'm not 100% sure if this was the first time that the roadies were mentioned. I don't know. But from the parts that I could pick up, this is what I heard. This is a song of great struggle and hope. This song goes out to all the guys who set this stuff up every day and tear it down. They sleep in buses and trucks and put up with a lot of hell from us every night just to make it right, so that you guys can come to see it. And that I get to, and then something I can understand. I think I understood it like Live This Dance, but it's at 1 hour 30, so if you want to give it a go, there you can find it. So that you guys get to come see it, and that I get to live this down. So for all the struggle, for all the hard times, from our heart, and there's another part I can't understand, and then for all the fighters, this one is called Dry County. So that's really, really beautiful, very touching. And then at I think 1 hour 37, either way, it's mid Dry County. There's another speech which I can understand. It's probably at 1 hour 37. And then in the end, I mean, that's really, really special. This is really the first time I heard it at 1 hour 11. It's the final kind of like, well, almost like battle cry. It's the final part of Dry County. And it's like he holds the tone, he holds his voice. It starts at 1 hour 10 minutes 55 seconds and it ends at 1 hour 11 minutes 3 seconds, and it sounds just like Axl from Guns N' Roses. That's definitely the first time I have heard John, you know, doing an Axl, and it's raw, it's very, it's inspiring. I'm like, yeah, you could keep it up. I like it. Yeah, so yeah, really great. Then after Dry County, where are we going? Oh, Lay Your Hands on Me. And that has the well-known line, "Welcome to Johnny's Church of Rock and Roll." That was really great. I'll Sleep When I'm Dead. I got a little overexcited there, so that means that when the first time I listened to the recording, I scribbled down helemaal, which is Dutch for entirely, so I was like, getting across to my future self, you have to listen to this song in its entirety, not just the speech, its entirety. It's really, really good. Lots of stuff to unpack, and so I did. I listened to my my own notes. He starts, of course, with, "I think it's about time we put this thing into a higher gear." So he does that. So "Sleep When I'm Dead" is definitely, it's like a super party song. It always has these kind of like teasing parts into it. It's a lot similar to what they do in Bad Medicine, which is then the final song from the main set list. But despite my me being so determined that I had to listen to it again, I couldn't really find like really things that I can share here, except that it's a great song. But I think at one time he makes the joke that the audience should do its best singing along because of Elvis, because "Sleep When I'm Dead" was the song where they brought up the big dolls, so one doll with the body of a woman and the head of a chicken, I think, and one from Elvis. I'm not really sure what the head was, a chicken. I think it was a chicken head. But either way, so there's one woman, and there's a blow-up doll from Elvis, which are really big, like, as big as the stage, or, the top of the stage. And so he says something like, one more time, you guys make, and then something I don't understand, but I think it's Elvis. You guys make, happy. He's old and he's dead. I don't know what that means. Elvis was definitely dead, but I don't know about old. But it's you know, he does it very tongue in cheek. So I think he's making a reference to Elvis. And John Bon Jovi has recently actually made remarks about Elvis and about you know, having a midlife crisis or artists of, you know, middle-aged artists kind of like, you know, losing it or losing themselves or yeah, getting fat or getting into drugs and something like that. And and also about having a midlife crisis, and that he was really proud that he didn't have a midlife crisis. And I can understand that. I mean, midlife crisis is never fun. But I do want to say that if you are in a midlife crisis can be a very, you know, redeeming thing. It's kind of like it's a stage in your life where you just, you know, burn it all down and start again. So I really think that midlife crisis for men and women is one of the most underappreciated phases in one's lives. And I'm really like, yeah, go all in, you know. It's, if you don't have a midlife crisis, it can mean two things. Either you're, you know, suppressing things and you're not living at your full potential, you're not clearing the sheet, you're not starting again, you're not realigning with life and God itself, or you have been aligned all your life and everything is exactly as it should be. So not having a midlife crisis can really mean two things. Okay, then we move from Sleep When I'm Dead to Jumping Jack Flash, which has, oh no, Jumping Jack Flash is a cover song that is in I'll Sleep When I'm Dead. And also a Rolling Stone from My Papa Was a Rolling Stones, also in the song, weaved into the song. And then we move to Bad Medicine. Bad Medicine and the cover version of Shout. So in Bad Medicine there's a lot of flirting, there's a lot of dancing, and it ends, or you know, one of the sentences that I picked up with that I really like was, although I can't dance, at least I can rock and roll. And then boom, it moves into the guitars from Jumping Jack Flash. So that's like, ooh, they always give me shivers, the guitars from Jumping Jack Flash. So yeah, that's really great. Also in Bad Medicine they do the same thing as they did in Zeltwerk, Austria. They let the show drop, so they just like end and have a little game with the audience, but it's less they don't push it as hard as they did in Zeltwerk. Like in Zeltwerk you were really like, for a moment, you're kidding, right? They're leaving. And here they keep the conversation a little bit going, and actually at, I think, 1 hour and 30 minutes, I think it must have been, he actually says to Richie's, like, hey Rich, to Richie's and Maura, do you think they want to go home? And I think he says in Spanish to the Spanish crowd, hey, do you want to go home? So I really picked up a line from John in Spanish, which I had never heard. So check it out for yourself if you're Spanish in particular. Listen to the recording. You can find the recording in the description box. And probably at 1 hour 30, do you hear Spanish and what is John saying? And leave it in the comment box so that we all know. Then after the break, oh yeah, after the break, after they have kind of like, you know, let the song pause for a moment, and then they pick it back up, they have these really heavy guitars, and I have not, it's 1 hour, 37 minutes, They have these really heavy guitars, and I have not talked about these guitars, even though they're in every show. And it's this really heavy pounding. I always call it the thunder lizards pounding. The thunder lizards is a 90s comic on TV, and I think the entire name was the Terrible Thunder Lizards, but either way, it had this intro with heavy guitars, and I always associate these heavy guitars at 1 hour 37 minutes with the Thunder Lizards, and I just love it. I totally love it. I said it here like capital letters, heavy ass guitars. So heavy ass guitars are really, really welcome. Oh, and it's like before he kicks in with "I need a respirator because I'm running out of breath." That's where you have these guitars. Okay, so then we move on to the first encore with "Bed of Roses." Is yelling? And I was also wondering, is there a girl on stage? How was 1995? Did they have a girl on stage in "Bed of Roses" or not? It is possible that the yelling is a response to the guitar of "Bed of Roses" kicking in, and therefore just people, recognizing the song and expressing themselves. So after "Bed of Roses," they play "Never Say Goodbye." I've read one kind of like overview of this show saying it's the last time it will ever be played. I don't know if that's true. I didn't fact check it, but it was a rare song by the time, "Never Say Goodbye." It was played here instead of "Hey God," in all likeliness. So one of the final performances of "Never Say Goodbye," Little Steven was back. I couldn't really understand what they were saying or how he was announcing Little Steven. It has something like "We wouldn't be here without him," and I'm like, okay, he's the guitarist from Bruce Springsteen. I get that, but why wouldn't you be here without him? And then it's something like, "And wouldn't he be here without us?" I really didn't get the details. It's also because this is one of the lesser recordings, so it's not as perfect, I would say, as Zeltweg was or other recordings we've had. So, but Little Steven's back. And then they end with the first encore with "Someday I'll Be Saturday Night." I looked it up if this was by any chance a Saturday night concert.